We don't have any public hearings tonight, there's nothing on the consent agenda. We'll move on to planning commission matters, and,
Got a bunch.
we've got recommendations in regards to commissioners.
Yes, so our appointments are staggered, so every year generally one of the terms has ended. This year, Marty and Ron's terms are up. In typical fashion, we send a recommendation from this body to the council. Typically, those members get reappointed. We do it in usually our last meeting in this year, so that we have a full quorum in January. So basically what we need to do tonight is barring any objections, kind of do a vote to recommend reappointments of Marty and Ron to the planning commission, and that will be sent to council on December 10th.
Okay. I guess,
So we'll start with Marty.
okay,
I don't know, you wanna stay on?
yeah,
Yeah, sure. 30 years, man.
yeah.
So just make a motion, Marty, it's you're working on, so Priscilla as vice chair, just ask for a motion, we'll do a second.
Okay, I ask for a motion to reappoint Marty. I asked for a motion.
Oh.
You made the motion?
I made a motion.
Okay. Now we need a second.
Second.
Brian, second, Brian. All in favor?
Abstain.
As you should,
Okay, back to you, Chair.
and then Ron.
Okay, motion for Ron.
Assuming Ron, I think we talked about this before, okay.
Abstain. Motion,
I move that we extend Ron's tenure on the commission.
we have a motion, second?
Second.
We got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None noted.
Okay, I'll have something for you to sign, Marty, and then I'll send that to the council. Based on their rules, they just do that under consent generally, so unless they have objections, which they likely won't. Okay,
Okay. Next item is, discussion on canceling the December 17th meeting.
okay, it's getting close to Christmas time. Last year, we did the same thing, canceled that meeting, and we held our own kind of get-together for the holidays. The 7th, I do not have a public hearing that has been applied for, so there's not enough time to get into the first December meeting. There's barely enough, I mean, unless it comes in by this week, which I don't see anything, there wouldn't be enough time to bring it into that meeting anyway, especially with all of our design review committees and things that have to look at it. So, I think we discussed this at the last meeting. Is there an assumption that we want to cancel that meeting? If so, we need to kind of vote and make a motion to do that.
I move that we cancel that meeting.
Does the state allow it? We don't have months without any meetings?
Yeah, our meetings are based on our charter. We just have to have one available every month. And we do, but it's not, there's no public hearings scheduled for that meeting, so there's no obligation. Similar to how the council's gonna cancel their December meeting as well.
Neither? A motion?
I made the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None noted.
Okay.
Election of officers?
Yeah, so this is one I started doing last year. Instead of waiting until the January meeting and doing all this stuff when we do possibly have a public hearing, I'd like to do it the last meeting when we don't have one. And then we would just make it official on the January meeting. So every year we elect vice chair, and a second vice chair out of members of this body. And then at the January meeting, I'll take those down The January meeting was simply just re-acknowledge them. Unless there's some reason there's an objection or something happened that it changed, that way we don't have to go through the motion process and nomination process at that time. So, at this time, Marty is the chair, Priscilla, you're the vice chair, I believe Joe is the second. So, we can go through a full nomination process. Does anybody have any other nominations that they would like to make for chair? Sounds perfect. It usually does kind of remain the same, so, if there's no
We
other
can switch
nominations for
roles
chair.
if you want. I mean, you know,
We
it's
do
such
so
a
much.
tough, it's a tough job, yeah.
It's a tough job, Marty holds it pretty well.
He's missed one meeting since I've been on this.
I know, right?
I was in Australia.
Yeah, you were Australia. And I didn't get to do anything, because there was no action, no public hearing.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Other than Priscilla maintaining to sit. And second vice? No volunteers? So with that, we'll make we just need a motion to nominate chair, vice chair, and second vice chair in order. And then we'll make it official on the January meeting.
Okay, motion for chair,
I move that we appoint all three current officers into the same position.
That's perfect.
okay, we got a motion, second?
Second, yeah. I was a second.
All in favor?
Alright.
Do we get the
Opposed?
vote?
I abstain.
I abstain.
And, yeah, you're kind of voting for yourselves, but you're also voting for the others. Okay, and then I'll make a note to do the official vote in January. Okay,
Okay, ready to move on? Update on the transportation system plan?
yes. So some of you, I don't remember if anybody, if someone was on the virtual meeting or not, might have missed the last, technical advisory and, public advisory meeting. So I just wanted to kind of roll through it real quick in case you had any other comments from the previous meetings that you attended. Where's my, kind of starting in the middle, so this upper portion is just kind of background, we've already gone over that number of times. This was the kind of comments made with our joint planning commission and council meeting. Talking about those concerns we had when we had our joint meeting. We discussed the need for we kind of turned into a conversation on the roundabout. We discussed the 1 lane versus 2 lane roundabout, maintenance and the business access, maintaining business accesses around that proposed roundabout. Impacts to trucks, I think Ron, we had made a point of all those, like we were designing things, we gotta make sure we make a point of that. General agreement on the proposed approach, so we kind of all, the way the consultant was moving forward.
Meaning on the 1 versus 2 lane also. It's against the law for a car to come in beside a truck in a multi-lane in Oregon.
Right.
And there's signage, but it still happens. Single lane is a lot safer.
Yeah, so the conversation around that was to keep it 1 lane, not 2, I guess, to clarify.
I agree with that.
Yeah. That doesn't mean you don't have slip lanes or auto turn lanes, it's where you have that actual full 2 lanes within the roundabout. O'Neill, we talked about general concerns of safety. We agreed on the approach with the kind of the, split merge lane, which is what they're heading towards on their concept. And we'll look at that in a minute. And then, of course, the 3rd Street concerns were congestion, couplet or no couplet, and upgrades underway with like the signals, we talked about the signal timing and some of the 3rd Street improvements that were being made. So that was kind of our joint meeting we had. several months ago now. Today's discussion, so if you guys still have comments on this, you can still put them in. They have not finalized their latest draft. So that's why I'm bringing it to you today. This meeting was done a couple weeks ago. Are these the right solutions we're looking at? Is there anything missing? Is there anything you wanna add to it? So this is the time to get it in before we do the final draft, which you will then see again and have the opportunity to change again. And so will the council. This is just trying to get to that as best draft as we can before it goes through the public process.
Well, my comment about why is it's a roundabout now,
Correct. Kind of is.
and it would be a lot less expensive just to modify the west and east ends, especially the east side where the trucks can get around a lot easier, and on the west end to make it easier to, if you're going west and you wanna go over Ranchero or something, you just hit the one lane there, which concludes the Madras lane, and it'd be a heck of a lot cheaper than tearing down the whole thing and rebuilding it.
Yes, and that was a discussion point we had, at one of our meetings. So this has come up multiple times actually in previous transportation plans as well. ODOT hates to do interim solutions, right? Because they hate to put money in something they're gonna tear up later again. Did the same thing with the Tom McCall roundabout up here, right? It was, well, we really just need these few things we could fix it, and then we finally came up with the ultimate solution and found the money to do it. So what Marty's talking about is squeezing those two ends, and getting rid of the problem with those small turning movements. That's something we brought up before. I will bring it up, I'll make a note of it and add it to, their list. I think they have it already, but I will bring it up again to see if we can even, implement. I don't know if how they put that in TSPs, if the solutions, and this is the other problem, that generally your transportation systems plan dictates your system development charges for your community. And so an interim solution probably wouldn't be funded through SDC, so that would be entirely funded through the state. And whereas some of the transportation impact fees that we collect for homes and businesses would go towards the ultimate fix. It might be some of the nexus why they don't do it as well, but there is something to be said about making small improvements to some of those pinch points. So we could definitely bring that up.
The other thing too, is it multiple solutions like the Tom McCall roundabout? Because we were told there were 3 options up there and there never was. There
Well,
was always one option and the rest of them were there as smoke screen to make it look like they were working on this.
I mean, the ultimate option we wanted was the overpass, right? That's what we wanted.
But that was never on the discussion.
It was never gonna get funded, yeah. It
But
was
they
just,
told us there was 3 and there wasn't, there was only one.
what was the third one?
There was a
Well, a
roundabout,
signal.
a light,
A signal, yeah.
and I don't remember what but they told us there was 3, I don't know what they were.
I think it was signal roundabout or overpass. Over or
Might have been
under,
overpass.
we would either go under or bring something over.
Well, they were gonna have to underpass it because of the airport.
Right.
That would make sense.
Yeah, we were gonna bring it down, that's right. This is what they're looking at as a concept drawing currently. Obviously, this is gonna have to be refined. This does show the slip lanes. Single lane roundabout with the slip, the path of travel, these little dotted lines. So, some of this frontage road stuff is still a little, how's that gonna function? So they'd basically be taking this section and making it an access point instead of Meadow Lakes, I think is how they're looking at it. This is kind of off the drawing, but I think they're looking at something different at Meadow Lakes and Locust. And this, so you turn here and then you'd go down. That's still up in the air, but the general function of this is what they're looking at doing. One of the things they noted was, and this is why the 2 lane keeps coming up. like eventually a 2-lane kind of gets triggered based on congestion, or you just change the amount of congestion you are accepting. Same thing with Tom McCall, moving it out a bit. Now, this is way far out. We're talking 2045 already. When this gets built, who knows? And that's why the interim solution seems like there might be something needed there before this is fundable. But this is what they're kind of moving towards, because in this plan, we really dictated to the consultant that we want to have an ultimate solution. We keep kicking the can on this, and we don't come up with a solution, and no one knows what we're doing. So we're trying to come up with something that actually is feasible, and we can plan for it, even though it might get modified slightly in the future. So speaking of O'Neill, bringing that in, we've already made some striping changes up there, which helped out quite a bit. I think that actually helped a lot.
Yeah.
The ultimate solution is to bring this median in. Oh, there's not. So this would actually be a raised island, kind of like they do in Redmond, and that would allow these people to turn left and then merge lower down. So you're not having to look uphill and downhill, you can just go. Add a turn, I think this turn line's already here, and then this would remain 1 lane. So they were making discussions about possible right-hand turn lanes, but then that would defeat the purpose of what we just did. So they got rid of that concept. Again, don't know when this would get built, but the striping alone actually solved a lot of the problem. So any other comments about that one? This was another one of those where they were looking at, you always have to show alternatives, right? Early on, they were showing alternatives of underpasses and overpasses, and it's just not economically feasible. 3rd Street, so this is part of the project. They just are almost, well, they're complete, mostly. I think they're a cone flat still.
They were today.
Yeah, they're still doing the ramps over there, and they're gonna go further east and do some more ramps east of town, but it's kind of a separate project. And a few down Close Flat itself to the south. 3rd Street, US 26. So primarily, this was a lot of pedestrian enhancements. That's where these are the RFBs by the school, and then we did another one by the bike path. A few more island crossings that they put in, 3 more I think at Gardner, Maple, and Knowledge. And then the signal timing, those are kind of the big congestion
Signal
relieving
timing has
things.
made a heck of.
I don't even think it's on yet.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it
They
sure
haven't-
feels like it is.
I don't believe, last time we talked to them, at this meeting actually, it was not on.
Okay.
They hadn't,
Maybe it's just the
Fixed it,
difference
yeah.
in the speed limit.
the speed limit was dropped to 20,
Yeah.
yeah, it could be. But at this meeting, we specifically asked if they had turned on the signal timing and coordination, and they had not, so
Okay.
I don't know if they have by now.
Maybe I'm imagining it.
It could be just, it's new, so you have to get better. Not a lot more you can do with this corridor, so the idea is, as we've spoken about before, alternative routes. We're doing one of them right now, Combs Flat, that's getting built. The other one is 9th Street Extension, which we've talked about for 15 years. The other, and 2nd Street bypass, which we kind of did to get to Deer Street. And then there's still talk about, I think they're kind of abandoning the O'Neill that used to come across the swim ponds and that kind of thing. But with those parallel routes, so we got Combs, 9th, 2nd, and then the Peters connection over to Laughlin. Those are those alternative routes that they're trying to use instead of 3rd Street. That's still moving forward with the plan. The couplet system is kind of being shown to not function. Not be worth what it would solve. It would only function for a little while, and then you'd be right back where you were. And so that's not a solution they're looking for, is doing the one-way streets, which is a couplet. This is a big slide, that's why I printed it out for if you want to kind of look through these. These are Kinda getting at some of those different improvements all over town, some of the bypass routes. They didn't even put Ninth Street on this slide, but they show Combe Flat. This is the Peters extension down here in the second, and the fix of the Y. Just fixing the Y actually improved. So they modeled all these improvements, just fixing the Y around what actually helped move traffic through as well. And then there's some pedestrian stuff that they're doing on the east end of town, that's part of the ODOT's plan, that's currently underway. So you can read through this if you want, if there's any specific pedestrian, bike lane type things, so, another topic that came up at this meeting was to discuss bike lanes in the downtown, which we've never had because it's parking. There's not enough width without getting rid of the center turn to create those bike lanes or even offset them. So that was a lot of discussion around that. And the basic solution in this is to have second and fourth just be our bypass lane. So bikes, try not to go downtown, go around. How do we enhance that? How do we show that? Currently, Second Street has bike lanes on it, no center turn. So that's how, if you see how Second Street is built, that would be carried through town. Same with Fourth eventually. And those would be our, once you get past, the school, the bike lanes come back. They, somewhere right in there, they show back up because the turn lanes go away and the parking goes away. And then you have bike lanes going clear out. But if there's any other pedestrian things that you might think about or want this to be specifically looked at, let us know. Lynn Boulevard was the other one that we're having them come up with something on, because that's Lynn and Combs Flat.
I noticed.
Or our grocery.
I noticed a comment in here about putting bike lanes on Fairview. Why?
Yeah, I don't know. I
There's
think,
hardly any bikes go down there.
well, it's so wide.
It's nice and wide, so.
It's wide, and there's no curb, there's no sidewalk. I think it's more of a, if you ever built Fairview completely out, curb, sidewalk, the whole deal, then you would, because it's the only road that goes north-south completely all the way through. So as you rebuild streets, you add them. Not to everything, residential streets, like in my neighborhood, you don't paint, you don't stripe. But some of the main corridors you would. The classification of the street, so Fairview, it's like a minor collector. So it gets an elevated look.
The other thing that I saw, I think it was in here, was extending Elm Street through. And I assume that means.
You know, that's a good point. I'm gonna bring that one
buying a
up.
couple pieces of property where it dead ends there.
Yeah. Elm Street is still considered the main collector because of the signal.
Yeah.
And it used to go up to the hospital. It doesn't anymore.
And I think it's striped in it too for bikes.
Yeah, and it dead ends
And
into
the
these
stop
holes.
sign never blocked.
Right.
There is some, you know, it might be something where we end that a little earlier, because we're never gonna buy those homes and blow them down and cut through.
They missed,
Fairview makes more sense.
they missed the chance a couple of years ago because the houses were for sale.
Oh, well, that was, Marty, that was 20 years ago.
No.
No,
When was it?
it was, what was the recession? So it was, 2008,
8.
but it was like 10 or so when we were actually, when everything hit rock bottom, and that would have been the time. Yeah.
But,
It was talked about too, we just didn't do it. Elm Street, I'm gonna say classification.
I think they should push Elm Street through because, for example, the sheriff and the police, especially the sheriff coming up Juniper Canyon, they have to come down and hit Fairview and go out. Where they could hit Elm, the police could come off the hill from the old hospital, go down Elm and out.
Yeah,
And
he's-
have to make a block turn.
So I'll ask them about those classifications. I think they're leaving it in. Cause if you don't, then you will never have, you have to have a document that says that has a nexus to do that. So if we, cause most likely what will happen is it would be an eminent domain type situation. Where we need to place
it's
it.
kind of unfortunate that the light at Elm didn't get moved. to Fairview.
And
Now, I mean,
the other part of that was the bridge across the creek too.
Yeah.
now, yeah.
It's not just the light.
Well,
So everybody goes down and they cut over to Fairview.
and they could go right straight through if we had it.
Yep. I'll bring that up, see if they have, I don't know what it actually currently says, but I think the classifications stay the same. So it would still be a gap in the street classification, so it goes, minor collector or major collector, and then it has those two homes, and then it goes all the way up. Lynn.
Yeah.
I don't think they changed it. Okay. Primary, what we got? Okay, Tom McCall Roundabout, I'll be brief, this is not Tom McCall Roundabout, that's not an image of it. It's just an image, I think, for the slide, honestly. There was a discussion briefly about, again, the 2-lane versus 1-lane. Preference is 1 with slips, and then reducing at such time in the future if we need to reduce or accept more congestion versus moving to a 2. Eventually, what's probably gonna happen at the Tom McCall intersection is another type of intersection where you're gonna see, roundabouts go in further down. Cause the ultimate next step is an overpass, right? That's not gonna happen for a while, but one of these legs is getting the southbound leg to the northern leg is starting to fail at times, in the afternoons. And so the slip lanes are becoming the next upgrade
So
to this thing.
maybe explain to me exactly what a slip lane is.
A slip lane, let's go back to the roundabout. See how this right here
Yeah.
rolls around? So a slip lane is used to avoid the roundabout altogether.
Okay, so just to hang up.
Right, so you
You're not gonna,
only,
you're not gonna go on, you're not gonna try to go straight, you're going,
right, you're only
A different
entering the
direction.
roundabout if you're going straight or turning left.
okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Otherwise, you can just slide around, merge back in, and you're good, you're good.
Okay.
Now, sometimes they're separated like this, that's what I prefer, and then sometimes you see them right in the roundabout, and they just have that dedicated
That's
turn,
confusing.
which is confusing, because you get into that lane, all of a sudden, you're like, oh crap,
Yeah.
and people end up just trying to gun it through,
Yeah.
I don't like that.
That's why I'm not for a double lane, because to me, it seems to be a lot more dangerous. People don't know how to work it, how to use it.
Yeah, so I prefer the separated slips, especially on a highway when we have more speed,
Right.
and then people can just glide around, and they get away from the traffic, they get away from the turn for the trucks, and it's just a better situation, so. So I'm gonna write that one down. That's basically what they discussed on this slide. This gets into a whole lot of stuff, and again, I kind of printed that out for you. These are just showing routes where they're planned. It's basically, some of these are just, like it even has the trail systems, where there's multi-use passes versus on-street, pathways and bike lanes and things like that. So if you, this is more of a, do you see something missing on the street? Do we have a gap? So what they're trying to do is they're closing all the gaps for where we have sidewalks, bike lanes, and multi-use paths. And so our TSP needs to show where we want all these connections so that we can use SDC funds to fund them. Or use that as leverage for grant money and things like that. So this proposed, like these dark green dots, those are proposed bike lanes. Like you can see some of them are coming down here and then they'll end. This is actually showing them going through, but they'll end once it hits downtown. And they're showing the alternative routes. So like this one,
That's on Second Street.
yeah, see, they're not even showing them on Fourth.
That one with the double line there is not Second.
This is Second here, and that's Third. This is why you need to look at this stuff a little closer. So they're gonna use Second as the bypass, not Fourth. That's probably better anyway.
Well, it shows Fourth is the the lighter green.
existing neighborhood bikeway. So if you go down Fourth, it's just a huge wide street. There's no, it's big. There's no real need to strike that. Cause you have your full 54-foot pavement. So this is when it talks about bike lanes and things, is where we'd actually strike them.
The problem when
Okay.
you don't have it on Third Street and you only have it on Second and Fourth is the ones that go to Third Street on bikes.
So that's,
They
yeah.
do it on the sidewalk.
Yep, so there, yeah, there's less of that happening, but yeah, so they
Well,
bump up,
I know
right?
they go by our office every day on the sidewalk with bikes.
Kids.
Adults. Adults, on their
Supposed to
bikes,
be in the
going
lane.
right in front of our,
Yeah,
right
it's-
down the sidewalk in front of our office every day.
It's very difficult, and this has something to do with speed coming off here, and why some of that was reduced. It's uncomfortable riding in traffic, right? You don't have bike lanes, on Third Street, they go away, they have to know, so some of this is gonna come down to just signing and just, like, hey, you need to bail, go down to Second and over. Or you jump into the travel lane and you go. At 20 miles an hour, if people are
That's
actually
possible,
doing it,
yeah.
it's okay. When you're coming off the grade, people are still doing 35, 40.
Yeah.
They haven't quite got back. Again, that's where the roundabout comes in, that'll slow people down a little bit, where they're just sliding around right now, but that's way out in the future, so. This document, when they show these lines and things, this is really about, most of this stuff gets done by either some small infill projects where we're connecting in sidewalks that just have a gap, or we're going out for grant money. We have to have these in our plan. If we don't have them in the plan, you cannot apply for a grant. But right now, we're working on something for Lynn Boulevard, for sidewalks and things on Lynn. That wasn't in our plan. So even if we don't plan on building it ourselves, we still want it in here. So we can say, hey, we did plan, it's in our TSB, we just need $6 million to do it, right?
And I think Lynn probably needs it because of the school.
Lynn does, and so you can see on the plan right here, here's Lynn Boulevard. And that's, they're showing existing bike lanes proposed, this is just bicycle. There should be a pedestrian, there might be multi-use. Yeah, here we go, proposed sidewalks. This will likely be offset or separated, multi-use, so, what am I trying to say? Not curb tight. So, off-street type path on Lynn.
It really could be curb tight with the width of the land, right?
Lynn on the south side is wide enough.
Is it?
On the north side, it's not. It does some funny things on the right of way. We don't have some of the right of way by, down here, like by the track.
Okay.
And going west, we don't have enough right of way on the south side. We have pieces, like we did when the RV park came through. We don't have enough to do that, but we might have to pull that out of the project. But we do have the north side all the way down, and we have the south side definitely from Fairgrounds all the way to Lynn. And so that's what we're applying for a grant for right now. Depending on where the right of way comes out, we might have to do sidewalk on one side.
You mean to tell them flat,
Combs Flat, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I said, yeah,
not Lynn.
Fairgrounds to Combs Flat,
Yeah.
on Lynn.
I knew what he meant, yes.
Well, I thought that's what he meant, but I thought we ought to clarify it.
This also shows the trail, this actually goes outside of our UGB, we're working with the county to put this in their TSB as well. This is the extension of the multi-use path down Madras Highway that would extend out to the DLT property and then eventually into our wetland project, so we have an actual pedestrian, another grant project we're working on, to build that. So you don't have to get in your car every time you wanna go to wetlands, you can actually bike it or walk it. Currently, you have to go all the way down to O'Neill and
Yeah. Just as a question, where they're working on the apartments right now, they've got the path covered.
yeah, it's kinda tore up there.
Yeah, so how are they going to resolve that when
They'll replace, they'll build it back.
they're?
What?
Well, it would be too steep just to go straight down to it and then in. off the highway.
It's a pretty,
Oh, they're gonna build their entrance up.
they did build the entrance up, but the
Yeah.
entrance is about, it's probably a foot and a half.
Yeah, so
feet
they'll have
thick
to-
on top of the bike path, so
Right.
it'll be a
They'll have
pretty
to
gradual
taper it,
drop
yeah.
down to it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they'll have to taper it down quite a bit from what they've done out there.
Thank you for understanding what I was
No,
talking
that's all right, I
Yeah.
go by it every day, so I see it out there, so.
Yeah, that will have to be, and that's, you know, this is where ODOT needs to help pay attention, because they have their own spec on how they do things. You know, so we need to make sure they get those slopes properly done. 'Cause that-
Is there gonna be, are they just
In-
crossing the highway when it gets out there to where the wetlands are at?
That's a debate, I'm advocating for crossing closer to town, like by the apartments.
Right.
So one idea was to just continue along this side, but eventually you have to cross. The bridge is too low, we thought about trying to go under the bridge, but it would get washed out every year. So we're like, well, do you cross out here when everybody's doing 55? Or do you cross in here where we have a little bit slower traffic, do the full RFB button, where people are already slowing down to turn and things, so most likely it will cross and then go down. Once we hit the DLT property, we'll bail onto it. And then they have their own trail system that they are working on.
You can cross right into Ninth where you've already got crosswalk access built in.
They just don't have anything on the other side.
But there's room for stuff on the other side.
Not all the way out.
There's a lot more in the way, a lot less, but, so the project alone is already pretty steep. So we're trying to utilize this trail, so it comes out of Ninth, it turns, it gets onto the bike path.
Right.
We're trying to utilize that as much as possible, and then there's
Crossing the
not much
church.
on the other side, that would be a lot more development. We're trying to keep this to more of an asphalt off-street path versus curb and sidewalk and drainage and all that.
So would you cross like right before you get to the church or something, or somewhere along there?
Somewhere in there is where, it might even be right at Riverland, could be another spot.
Yeah.
Where we cross right there, just to pick up everybody before because the traffic will slow down before they start picking up again, is the thought. Riverland Loop, I think, would be the furthest I would go. But this is all gonna be part of the design, and ODOT has to approve it, so, that's what we're going with these things.
Okay.
Multi-use east, some of the Barnesview Trails things are in here, Main Street, you can see we'd like to do more. Main Street's terrible to walk up and down, it's just kind of a wide shoulder. That would be kind of nice to have some decent, proposed pathways on. You know, we see the stuff along the creek, that's kind of a pie in the sky, you know, as things develop, we might be able to get something out of Stearns. So if you see any of these kind of multi-use passes, what I'd like to do when I'm trying to get, kind of put in our TSB, the language, like when you do an arterial street, the preference would be an off-street path. So you're not right next to traffic. And so that's what this is showing, is along the arterials.
Wasn't there a path included in the Ochoa project, property project?
That
Along the
one's
creek?
already built.
Along the creek?
Yes, that was it, yeah, that project, yeah. So the main, multi-use path for that whole project, the Ochoa Lumber Master Plan has a creek, so we would get to there, to Willowdale.
You get to Willowdale with,
Yeah.
right behind, you get right behind those houses, you don't have to
Okay, I
go
guess
to
I
Willowdale, right?
didn't understand how far out you were drawing the line there.
So we know we can get to at least here. Once you get to Willowdale though, there's a gap until we get to say Purcell's, and then I know with that development, we can continue if we ever did something on Purcell's property and Brian Barney's property here. This isn't built yet. Their plan was to build it as the kind of the last project. I think with this apartment complex that they're looking at, I think they're gonna go ahead and do it. But it just makes sense. They're building the streets and everything else too, so. But as you look at this, you know, we still have the one down the Hudsmith Drain that we'd like to see connected. Maybe it doesn't go to Maine, but we could probably get it to Loper. This one's a wild card, but you never know. If we ever This is kind of one of those projections, if Hudspeth Reservoir ever becomes a public property for some reason, maybe they get some easements or whatever, then we can push this up and over to Barnesview and get that trail. So that's what this line is. It looks like it's randomly drawn there, but that's what it's for.
What's the P2, P4, P6 where your cursor is? Yeah, straight up.
P4.
Is that
This
side?
this is Peters, so proposed sidewalks, we actually completed these already. And we'll complete all of this with the Combs Flat project.
Are they sidewalks or bike path accessible?
In this case, the Combs Flat project will have both. You'll have some off-street and some, and actually our sidewalks are gonna be separated as well, until you get to the bridge. And then once you hit Peters, it'll come curb tight. All the way through the intersection, and of course, this hasn't been designed yet. That could be either or depending on the development that goes in. They may choose to do a complete off-street path, they may say, hey, we're gonna do curb tight plus an off-street, yeah. They have an option there once this Smith Landing property develops. So while this says, and this doesn't dictate what you have to do, it just says what is proposed. So like Combs Flat, our old plan just talked about curb tight sidewalks. Well, we actually designed it because we have the irrigation pipe coming in there. We're doing the off-street path. Then on the other side, we need drainage. So it's easier to put the drainage between the road and the sidewalk than it is on the backside. So there'll be a separation for some of that. What else? Pedestrian west, we kind of went through this. We basically show trails along all of our waterways. This is a unique one here. This is the trail that goes up to the state park. I need to add, they're not showing the steps on there.
Not showing the steps.
That should be there. That might, I wonder if it's on the multi-use one. Hold on. Nope. So, the city owns that property where we brought the water and sewer lines up for the data center and things. There's always been kind of a plan to utilize that for, it's in the Parks Master Plan now, for a kind of a recreational trail, like steps. Like actually step it off, and we call it private steps, and people can run up and down, do what they want, but it gets people up onto the top into the trail system. That should connect here instead there. This is another one, but that's state parks. This would be our connection. I need to make sure they know that. Otherwise, we're just same kind of pathway configurations. Pedestrian west, these are the same things. Very generic type connection points. We'll see if some of these actually come to fruition. They're very hard to get along here because most of that's blocked off. We even have some down here on Tom McCall that we'd like to put in to gather all those to that new commercial center we have up there. West and east, these are very similar to the multi-use path stuff. Not much different. This was at the top. I think that was just marked, I don't know why that's on here. That's already there. So again, any pedestrian stuff that you might see missing in those as you look through, just let me know and I'll get it over to Ryan. So we can, the whole idea is to make that draft as solid as possible before we really dive into it and read nuance of it. Roadways, these are roadway classifications, and upgrades. A lot of these are what we use for, like we were talking about earlier, Elm Street, Fairview. So you have your reds, your major collectors, or no, red's major arterial. Major collectors are orange, and this just dictates how those roads get built, the design criteria and the speed of them. Generally, this is not changing from previous plans. I think I had some minor changes that I added to Loper because the hospital went away and the school went in. Those are a little different now. 7th Street, I think is gonna go from residential to a minor collector. Here, FC1. 7th Street is, it operates like a collector now. Until the 9th Street bypass happens, 7th Street is just a heavy street, and it needs to be kind of classified that way. So we can do the improvements we need, and it does open it up, the area for some of those professional office, like commercial uses that we've done before. When the classification changed, they weren't able to do them anymore. This would bring that back. Even if 9th Street gets pushed through, 7th Street is still gonna be a major road. And here's Elm, Marty. And you can see R10, that's the gap. That you're seeing right there. So that is still in the plan. And then you have,
But Fairview is on this anyway.
it's not, so Fairview's still local. FC2, that's kind of going through this, I believe.
Another question I've always had, cause Elm Street's always been on the list as a collector. Why are the stop signs every block on Elm Street instead of the access, the cross streets?
I don't know. I don't like to stop there either.
But what, my point is, if they were turned, you'd still have to stop at the intersection, but then your collector, quote unquote, would be a free-flowing street.
At least to a certain point.
Right.
Till you hit a house.
Yeah.
It would help people use it more. I don't know why it is signed the way it is. It's probably just one of those things, like it's always been that way, so we,
No, it wasn't always that way.
we drew a line on a map,
It was
so
done that way when
changed.
the bike lines were painted in.
I can bring that up. Those two subtimes. At the, so, upper portion or lower portion? You're talking about?
Upper.
North, south from Third
South,
Street.
the south.
Well,
South.
south from Third.
Yeah.
This section here.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, cause if you turn off a Third on there, then you've got, if you're gonna go straight, you've got at least two, but maybe 3 stop signs.
Every block.
Every
It just
block.
depends on how far south you're gonna go.
Every block down to Fifth Street has got a stop sign
Yes,
on it.
yeah.
Maybe they did it to encourage people to use Fairview.
It worked.
Yeah, no kidding.
The only thing we need on Fairview is more radar.
Yeah, we need to get people,
Yeah.
we need to get people to hustle by Marty's house more.
And people on Fifth Street behind my house, honest to God, kids especially.
Yep, Fifth is another
It's a
one of
highway.
those, so that's, you can see these minor collectors, all these, like, these blue streets are minor collectors, so that's Fairview, Fifth Street. So these are like, they're supposed to collect, of course, some major collectors go into minor arterials and so on. So Fifth Street is eventually gonna be that kind of southern access route.
Those when you're, as far as school buses and people when they travel to come to the stadium, they go down Main Street to Fifth. And they drive Fifth from Main Street all the way over to the back entrance to the stadium, that's how they get there.
But after school, kids come tearing north on Juniper and scream down Fifth Street, it's like,
Cause they can get over to Main Street on the
yeah,
east side.
yeah.
Still considering pushing Fifth all the way through to Commissar?
Yep, that's R13. So that's still in there. That probably won't happen for quite a while, but it's there.
That might take some of the traffic off of Third Street out here.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's one of those alternate routes, right? So you leave it in there that, especially if, and this will come down to a lot of what the county does on the Juniper's Canyon side, so if that might be one of their solutions to our traffic problem. So if they're bringing more people down that one road instead of doing something down Main, do they need to actually help fix our problem? Because it's just more and more and more coming through that one spot.
Makes
Which-
sense that the county should make that second route out. Come
Yeah.
down to the river.
So they either come down to Main, that would help split traffic, or it's gonna bring everything to Third and Main. Does that help? Does that distribute traffic enough to alleviate some of those issues? Or, for us, I think as a city, it doesn't do a whole lot, because you're just pushing people into another pinch point, but it gets them out of the canyon.
That FC three, is that?
This one here
Is that part of the
is-
development of the road into the Ocho complex? Cause that'll connect right across to it.
Yes, so right now, of course, it's not a city street.
Right.
This is basically saying this could be a future local street. Right now, it's just driveway access, but it lines up with Stewart Drive.
Right.
That'll be built, next year probably. Right there. So
That
that,
go to school?
yeah, this goes into the backside of Cecil and, what is it, Prineville?
That's the bus access for,
Yeah.
pick up the kids and everything,
Yeah.
so,
Might make sense to make that open. It hasn't been yet, but that's why that's there. And then they show, actually they show this in progress, okay. That's all looks good, roadway west, we did that, roadway east. Then there, this is all about kind of the safety signs, we were talking about the bend in this road right here. That corner right now that's coming up in the county's TSP as well, that's kind of a problem area. Lynn Boulevard, right here, that intersection, mostly due to R&R Grocery, but that intersection is something's gonna have to happen.
Yeah,
Actually, it's mostly due to the school.
Well, due to the school going to R&R.
Well, and entry, or in beginning and end of the school day.
you know,
Yeah,
they,
but
they come out there to turn left, which is
Yeah, it's a pain to turn left on.
Oh, yeah. There's two the problem, the solution is difficult because the grocery store's there and they have that parking out front. That's what's making it so hard to actually put anything there without significantly affecting the grocery store.
Right.
And that's the crux of the issue, is trying to get even crosswalks in there because of the RV park access, and the parking lot access behind R&R, and then that's just open access, and if you shut that down, of course, the business is gonna say that's a taking, and over and over again, so. We're gonna have to do at least something there in the
I
future.
think it really worked there without really tearing up the neighborhood, it's a three-way stop.
Yeah.
I think ODOT's looked at that, it just really slows down, I mean, the congestion just got through the roof. And that's why they have, it's a highway, I mean, you're stopping a highway, essentially. It was a whole lot better when Fairgrounds was open, but ultimately it'd be nice to reopen this. Just turn right. Which could be a solution in the future if we pipe the canal.
It's basically just a trail thing right now.
Yeah, it used to be open, people used to drive through there all the time.
I used to in high school all the time.
Yep, yep.
Law school.
And then it was determined that, hey, you don't know this. So OID was like, that's our road. Shut it down. It's not big enough to be really a road, but if you pipe the canal, you could actually do something there. It's just who's gonna foot that bill? You have to reach that point where it becomes desirable. Pavement markings, we talked about this before, Priscilla, you brought it up, this restriping of like Harwood Street, that's a theoretic option to move those, the straight and left to a straight and right. Those types of little nuances are things that we can easily do as a city, they're just kind of noted in here. And improve visibility in Rock Road, and like I said, the county's gonna have duplicated road there. So not a whole lot in here, but if you see like a safety concern out there that you're thinking of, have it on your mind, you can always bring it up at the public hearing as well.
When is that?
It's not scheduled yet, so that, we don't even have a draft yet, this is getting to the draft. Transit, so our only transit right now, well, I guess not our only transit, but is the CET bus. There's a veterans, United Brothers does run a veterans shuttle or van. And these guys also run community options, there's a few other little nuances, but this is our primary transit. It has 3 stops in town, one by the library, one by City Hall, and by Lutheran Church. They're gonna do another one out by the trail by Loudright. That's another spot. And if there's enough need, they might do one on Peters, what's called Flags Village. It's kind of their target. Loudright is heavily used. So instead of these commuter buses that just go from here to Redmond to Bend back, Loudright is something that works within the community. It even does part of Juniper Canyon. So anybody can call and schedule it, but and there's a smaller bus that runs around and will pick people up and drive around. That's fairly popular. It's kind of what they used before there's a substantial like inner city route. Not much more you can do with that. That's funded through a payroll tax. And it's worked. As we grow, it'll grow. We may even get more providers. They're the only provider right now. Financing and funding, so, this stuff is just basically their estimate of what this plan costs, right? Total TSP project cost is $100 million. So these are the numbers we use when we're thinking about, okay, what projects do we really need, what's gonna be suited, because this is gonna end up in our STC methodology, which we will pass later. It's the kind of numbers you're talking about when you're looking at this, from a planning perspective. You're never gonna build it all, so people don't look at the big number, like this is a 20-year plan, it changes every 5 years. So you're never gonna build it all, you don't know where it's gonna happen, so you have to put it all in there. And you don't base your STC on the total amount of people, it's more of a progressive percentage-wise. Because you do have all these partnerships. You have 5 highways in town, so ODOT's gonna pick up a lot of the bills for some of the bigger projects that are hitting that $100 million gap. So that's key to know and understand. Grant funding, we've been pretty successful with grant funding. I think that was mostly due to the infrastructure bill this last 4 years, but Travel Oregon does good grants, State Parks does good grants. This brick one is new. We're actually looking at that one. A lot of these projects get done through grant money. But some of these federal ones are very onerous and they're hard to manage. So it takes a lot of staff time. That's a little nervous on this, but we always try for it. Safe Routes to School, that program we did once before. I think they've revamped it. That might be another one to look at for all these sidewalk pedestrian improvements. Once we start taking them off, then they can come off our plan. And then of course, local funding, we get fuel tax, transportation maintenance fees, we have utility projects, so if, one utility's tearing something up, we'll combine it with another project, kind of like we're doing with the irrigation pipe. So these are kind of the funding mechanisms we use to get these things done. Local street maintenance, water line projects, sewer line projects, we turn into street projects. And so, next step, they will compile all this. I'll get these notes that I have here to Ryan. They'll compile a draft. There'll be a final, looks like this is their presentation, so there'll be a final hack meeting, it looks like, for the draft review. I think that's gonna be virtual. And then we'll start going through the actual public process with you, this board, and then ultimately city council. And that's all I have on that.
So this is just kind of an aside, when we were on the East Coast a few weeks ago, lots of road construction. Everywhere we went, there was road construction. And everywhere we went, there were big signs up that said, this project funded by the bipartisan.
Oh, no, that's a lot of the stuff that's going on right now there.
Yeah, I mean, there were signs telling people this is being funded by the Congress's, agreement on this funding. So, I just found it interesting to remind people that.
It was a lot.
There was a lot of money, and it's their tax money at work to make their lives better.
Yeah, most of our pump slab project, you know, part of our ASR, well, we've got money, our airport got money, our rail got money,
Right.
Third Street project got money, there's a lot of money that came through there that hit our community, so it's, took advantage of it. But it doesn't always happen, doesn't come along very often.
Right.
Okay,
Okay? Anything that the commission would like to discuss?
I got, this morning, I got an email, from probably the county TSP report, or plan, or whatever it is. Was it made by, was it Praxis?
parametrics, the same as doing ours.
Okay, my impression by reading it is whoever did that was not on the ground, they must have did it from Portland without knowledge of local terrain or anything about it here.
Which email did you get?
It's the Juniper Canyon routes and
Okay, yeah.
the roundabouts out of Powview, and I mean, it's the county-wide, it's not the city, nothing to do with the city.
They are very early on in there.
There was no indication that anybody's ever even seen Cook County by looking at that report.
Yeah, well, we were at that one meeting we had with them.
Okay.
And they had lines everywhere. And so at that first TAC meeting that they held with the county, we were there was a NODOT folks, and that was kind of okay, we need to whittle this. You've got too much going on. There's too many options here.
Well,
They threw
options are-
everything on there.
The options are good, but some of the stuff that they're proposing and their pictures of,
Yeah, and those are the things that need to get vetted up front while we go through this. So you should, the next one, if you have comments, email them back. Because that's what they're looking for. Like, are we on target? Are we completely missing the mark? You know, what do we, so they need to see those things.
Didn't they have, like, right before the election, didn't they have a couple of meetings, the county, one out in Powview, one out in Juniper Canyon,
Yep.
about their
they
proposals?
probably presented what was emailed today, would be my guess.
Probably.
Yeah, there was
I mean-
two, they did one here, and then they did two others, one at Timber Canyon and one in Puppy.
The fire station and the Powview committee center. And I missed both of them.
Yeah, it was while I was gone, so I didn't.
And those are just, yeah, they're quite a ways behind us. In theirs, they're literally, that was the first draft.
So I have a question, and you
Yes.
may know the answer, and you may not.
Okay?
On the south side of the LDS church parking lot, they took down all those trees. Do you know what's going on there?
Oh, yes.
Where's it at?
LDS church?
So, those,
It's the south side of their parking lot. There's not, it's just,
What street?
it's actually an alley.
okay,
This is
Not on the street.
Cooper's property,
yeah, where Cooper's just living.
that field, which I like.
Well, actually, it's north of there.
It is north, it's north of Cooper's Place.
It's actually next door to Marvin Cunningham's house, just over his.
What happened was, I'll bring this up.
Took down a whole slew of
Yeah.
great big trees. I mean, yeah, it would make sense that it's an alley.
It was threatening the homes there, some of the limbs started to fall, 'cause
Okay.
they were big elm trees.
Yeah, yeah.
We also had a water line in there, and it was partially in the alley, partially out. So I think Public Works just went to the church, and just said, look, we need to do something, will you help us?
Well, and I
So we've
assumed
just-
it was
I
a
think they
city
just think it's
project
like-
because I've seen a city pickup there. I don't know if it was Casey or who it was,
I think it was probably Pat,
but,
but it was I believe they shared the cost because it was kind of half and half. I don't know who planted them or how they ever got there, they were in a line, so someone obviously did it on purpose,
they were huge.
but they were getting to the point.
Actually, the birds have a good method of doing it on too, because they go right down the fence line.
Yeah.
I've got them on my fence, one of
Oh, yeah.
consequences now.
So these are the ones she's talking about.
Yeah, those aren't there anymore.
And if you look at our, infrastructure, there's our sewer line, not the water line, it's a sewer line. And elm trees were terrible sewer line after a while, so we
There's
decided
still-
just to take them out.
Those, I guess beyond if they're junipers or what they are, they're.
Here, these are probably still there?
They're still there.
Yeah. And those look like they were planted purposely by the neighboring, so it's like, okay, those are yours, we won't mess with those. These are pine, these are much smaller
Pine,
trees,
okay.
these guys actually physically planted these. I can't get an angle, but the other ones are actually over, kind of half and half in the alley. And so we needed to do something, they were willing to participate, so we did it.
Okay, I was just curious, because all of a sudden it looked really naked.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the problem when you do that, it looks straight, but these limbs are
Wow.
actually hitting this house. They were falling,
Okay.
and they're the ones who actually
Thanks a
fall.
lot.
Yeah, I'd say, hey, we need to do something about this.
The other neat thing about the elms when you live, because I have them in my front yard and backyard and all the way around. And when you're living in that room, they are the nastiest tree.
Oh, yeah?
Well, they only live
Green,
about
green from a distance.
30 years and they start falling apart.
Not so much that, it's the bugs get in
You
and
get
start
the-
dripping on them,
Get all the aphid,
and then you can't touch anything.
what do they call that, honeydew? Yeah.
But the goats like them.
Looks like really.
Cut them and throw them in the field, the goats will show you what to do with them.
Yeah.
Now look at those big trees there on Fairview. And the birds get in there and now the street's white.
That was another one, yeah, that was another one, we had to actually trim those up.
Yeah,
That was
There's
another.
been lots of tree trimming going on, so I
that's
just.
good.
Well, those ones that Marty was talking about, these ones,
Mulches and enough.
these were hanging clear over the street.
Yeah, I
They were
guess
dangerous.
They were getting way out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife signed up for a service to get mulched, and they showed up one time and said, we have more if you want more, and so, it's like 2 or 3 days a week, there's 3 trucks that show up at 7 o'clock in the morning and walk back up and dump a pile of mulch in their driveway, so.
How much
It's-
can you use?
Evidently, she can use quite a bit, so. They said it was better for them, because they pay to take it to the landfill, and they don't have to pay to bring it to me.
Right.
So, I got acres of goat heads I need to bury and mulch, so I've got a plan for it, so.
Okay.
Pretty good.
For trees around downtown, like when you're walking and they're at head high, you put your head walking.
Are they in the sidewalk?
Yeah, like right in front of Connell Lodge and Third and Fourth and Main. I walk there all the time, so I hit my head on branch all the time. Can a guy just clip a branch off his at head high?
I mean, theoretically, yeah, a guy can do whatever they want, right? Typically, they're supposed to be up 8 feet.
I think that's what they're working on right now, because I know they just did the ones on Second Street by the Miller Building yesterday. They
Well,
worked their way
so
around
each
those.
private property is supposed to maintain them themselves.
Yeah, these were the guys that, the crew that told me they were working for the city building.
Well, the Miller property might be, Nagelhat's doing that, they're usually using that one. By the Econo lot, that must be on their property though, right?
Like, just right on Third, you know, where the thing.
Because typically, this is the Econo. Oh, you're thinking, oh, no, I'm thinking of this one.
Right there,
Yeah.
block away.
Yeah. This one. Here?
Yeah, those trees right there, that tree and those other two.
Those other ones right
Yeah,
there.
those are something we would typically even
Those are
tell
all,
them.
those
Those
ones
ones right in
you gotta,
front of
you
the-
gotta
Right,
touch
we
on
would
there,
just-
you go on the main and go up, all the trees that are along there, you gotta, like, next to the bank and stuff, you gotta.
This is one of the issues we've been dealing with is, so theoretically, the property owner is supposed to do it. Right, they're supposed to maintain, but they never do. So then eventually, we do it. Then we trim somebody's tree that doesn't want us to trim it. It's kind of one of those weird situations. So likely, that one, I would just probably have Justin trim it up.
You got a lot of property owners that are local.
That too. So most people
So they
don't
wouldn't
care.
know if you trimmed their tree.
But we have done it before, and people have, like, hey, that's my tree, don't touch it, but the ones in the street, we can make, property owner, by ordinance is supposed to, if they don't, we can simply go do it. We were hoping to get kind of a downtown association going, which we do have, and slowly perform some type of like, at least in downtown core, have more city ownership of that look and feel, so it's just done.
Should have just,
the owners don't have.
We
to deal
talked
with
about it for our office, doing the adopt a block thing, and just adopt our block.
So we brought that up the other day,
Because there is, like, the Miller building sits empty, and nobody's in there, and the owner's not gonna come maintain the stuff, so.
yeah. So,
Okay,
to answer the question, yes, you could probably I would just go through Justin first. That way you kind of went through the city street superintendent, and said, hey, I'm gonna cut this. It's probably not a big deal for that one. That one still, I think, still has the fence post stuck in it, doesn't it?
Oh, I don't know, I just know I got a gut anger when I'm busy talking, it takes my hat off.
Yeah.
It's like the one at the post office where you drive into the drop-off
oh,
mailbox.
yeah,
They trim those every now and then.
They get the left-hand side one is fine, is the tall one that my van doesn't fit underneath on the right-hand side. That's behind their fence.
right, yes, I know
I
where you're
can't
going.
touch those, that's federal.
Yeah.
Of course,
So as long as-
it could be like the ones down by that swab too at the Y when we trim them with the trucks.
As long as we're talking about downtown, I see the for sale sign has gone off of the old bank building.
It's not currently listed.
Okay, it didn't sell.
It didn't sell, it's just not currently listed.
Oh, I just should have asked you.
That's okay.
I have communicated with quite a few people, one of them was actually pretty promising. So, yeah, we'll see.
I've talked to the agent who had it listed and talked to her about some things, it's just off the market right now, I don't know that anything is actively happening, it's just off the market. Part of it is she changed, offices she was working with, so changed the paperwork on her side.
Okay.
One other thing I'd like to discuss is what we're gonna do about a holiday party.
Yeah, so the city is not having one this year, like we typically have in the past. So my suggestion, I think, is, what we did last year, we would pick a date.
I'd like to
Notice
pick a
it.
date that works for everybody.
Yep, notice it on like we would notice any other kind of meeting, like on our website, like we did last year. And, no meetings, no topics being discussed, no decisions are being made, kind of one of those deals, and we'll get together. Did you have any suggestions, Kristen?
I am offering, I have already said that I'd be happy to host again this year. We're kind of centrally located. I would hope that this time we choose a date that would work for everyone. But you guys already, you're the ones who know what other commitments you have for the holidays, as far as dates are concerned. The only date that we cannot host, I'll say we, because my husband's included in this, is the 9th, which is a Monday night. Other than that, we're available, so. And I know now not to serve pork. It'll be chicken or turkey or some sort of fowl.
I like one.
Well,
So the 9th is, okay, December 9th.
December 9th is not a good date, but otherwise, what would you guys like, what do you think?
What if we just did it on the 17th? I mean, just because we kind of already have that night.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A Tuesday night,
Yeah.
midweek, good for you guys?
I
You
don't
guys prefer
care.
Fridays, or you letting that for your own? Cause you're getting, 17th we're fine with me.
17th, we should be open for a meeting anyway.
Right.
So that sounds to me like we should fit into most people's schedules. Though that meeting has now been canceled, but,
Right.
That's true, it has now been canceled, and
so why don't we just reschedule it to her?
Okay.
if you wanna do a weeknight, that's fine. I was thinking more of Friday or Saturday, but,
I
whatever.
could do either.
Well, last year you had a conflict though.
Oh, yeah, because Ron would have the same conflict for the Roundup volunteer party.
And when is that?
Probably not on a Tuesday night though.
Probably not on a Tuesday.
Probably not on a Tuesday night. I know I do have something on the 13th, so that's a Friday.
So if a Friday is open for consideration, how about the 6th?
I'd have to look at the calendar, so I don't know.
Well, You don't carry your calendar around on your phone?
We can do it. Do you see how old Marty is?
He's not that much older
I
than
think he still
I
has a
am.
flip phone.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we pick several dates as options, send it out in an email, and everybody look at their calendars and come back with their thoughts.
So, sounds like the 17th or the 6th
Right.
are two dates. Do you guys wanna,
It could be a Sunday evening as far as I'm concerned.
I'm just thinking for ease of communication, if you guys just wanna email me back which dates you can do versus.
Okay, well, you already know mine. I can do either one.
Or what we'll do is, you guys think, we can always just give you a call and just say, hey, what do you say? And then we'll
Well,
make the call.
Tuesday idea sounds great to me.
Tuesday?
Smart Honey? You wanna just say
Let's do the 17th.
17th? Okay.
And then, if for some reason someone can't make it, go look at your calendars. If you can't make it, then we'll reassess.
Okay,
How about that?
17th.
okay.
5:30?
Yeah, 5:30 is fine. Regular meeting time.
Might have to send your address around.
I know, I was gonna get your
I
phone
gotta
number.
remember
I
how to
was
get to
gonna
your
get
house.
Don't do it on the record. Just say it right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Josh knows my address and knows my phone number. He can send it out to me. Do what?
Every time I come, I'm like, oh, I can check these ones.
Well, I hope you have better luck with it than I do.
So, okay, I should just say that real quick, as part of our commission discussion. So Priscilla, I don't know if anybody else is having this problem, but for some reason, all the emails going to Priscilla are going into her deleted folder. And what our IT basically said is there might have been an attack on that address, so what it defaults to is just sending everything to me. He's looking into that. I guess that makes sense, is that way you don't open something accidentally? But he's checking to see what happened, and that shouldn't happen.
'Cause I opened up my email yesterday and I had not one in it. And I thought, this is not right.
And so
Just
everything,
makes
but then
no
everything was
sense.
sitting in her deleted folder, and I was like, oh, what's going on? So if you see that happen, let me know.
I always forget to look, so.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I think we're,
Okay, director's report?
kind of went over a lot of stuff. I do wanna go real briefly, obviously no public hearings for the rest of the year. We'll still be working on transportation systems plan is obviously what we're currently going through. UGB expansion and economic opportunities plan that, chapter, just great, just one, what chapter is that in the comp plan? Our chapter 5. Our economy
You want us
chapter.
to know? We don't know.
So we're doing the EOA, Economic Opportunities Analysis, which we have to do in order to determine how much land we can bring into the UGB in the 20-year time period. So those two we're tracking. We'll probably see those in the late winter, spring. I gotta coordinate with the county and go through all the public meetings and things. So those are kind of two big topics. Other than that, there's not a lot of new development. We're talking to a lot of people, but I'm a little concerned with the lack of, say, subdivision applications and new projects on the horizon for housing. We've got the two big apartment complexes going, we've got the one in Laughlin going, but there's not a lot in the queue. So keep that in mind. I think people are kind of waiting to see what happens with rates and those types of things, but commercial is, other than the Ocho Mill, which just got built over there, is pretty much, I haven't seen or even talked to a lot of people. And industrial is the only thing really going. We did communicate with the lumber mill, the old wood grain back in discussions with them about doing a mixed-use zone there. That came back up. They're still renovating some of those buildings and still doing some of the manufacturing, and the hemp processor is still up there, but now they're getting, people wanting to do pickleball courts and recreation and housing and all this stuff. Well, you can't, it's heavy industrial, you can't do that.
Right.
So they're like, oh, so now we're back. Last year we talked a lot about doing a mixed use zone up there, so. We'll see where that ends up, but that'll be similar to what we did with the Ocho Mill long years ago. I don't think Marty was there, I don't know how many, Marty might have been the only one. And Ron, that when we did the master plan for the Ocho lumber site, so that would be something they would have to do to change it to mixed use, so they would go through kind of the same process, create their own master plan, their own kind of code, how things work, how it develops, the land use plan and all that. If they go that route, they might go a different route and just say, well, we wanna break this up into different zones. And that's a whole different conversation, so. The hemp operator is really kind of putting a wrench in things due to the nature of their business. All the ethanol and heptane and all those things that they keep on site, the smell, and it kind of hampers other uses, so. That's a potential one for development, but other than that, it's.
What about the biomass?
Biomass is part of the urban growth boundary expansion, so that's one of the reasons we're moving forward, that's still in play. Some of the electrical planning around that, how they route their services, utilities are still being worked on, but really it's all about, can we bring that portion of the property to their growth boundary, and so we have a site. They can do it in the county if they absolutely have to, but they want water and sewer, so eventually they need to be in the city. And if they're right next to your growth boundary, then we kind of want to control the development, right? So it makes sense to bring it in. It's just a large piece of property, it's like 230 acres to get out to the property. The state doesn't like it when you bring in that much property, so it's and our EOA was so old, it was over 20 years old, they're like, no, you gotta redo it. So that's why we're going through this process to take a little longer.
What about the electrical generation plant up on the Prineville Dam? Is that ever gonna happen?
Well, it was the fourth time they tried it, it didn't happen this time either, so it's never dead, as long as someone has the ability to keep pushing it. But it died in committee, I think, at ODF, or no, ODF didn't recommend it, so whatever committee gives the go-ahead to move forward, basically turned it down. That was over a year ago.
Makes sense to have a reserve production for the city if we could ever get that in.
It was pretty small, it was, we're talking 4 megawatts, but it was a good project, and what we were trying to do at the same time was solve the gas mold disease that's coming down the river where all the, right now the spillway plunges into that river, and it creates too much nitrogen, it's not getting bends for fish. And we would have solved that issue, would have done some more environmental things down the stream, but I think what really sunk it was they just kept pushing for passage. And a 4 megawatt plant is not gonna do passage in the building. And so that's probably what sunk it. Now, not everybody agreed with that on the committee, but it didn't go through, so I imagine it'll come back up again.
Hope so.
We'll see. Other than that, what else, any questions for, okay?
Got anything else?
Yeah.
I don't
No?
think I've asked all my questions. I think I've worn out my welcome.
Right?
So, there's nothing else, we're ready to adjourn?
Very good, Jim.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you, guys. I will get this written up.